This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
Hi guys, I'm Carl Gruber, author of the new book True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. Are you tired of being caught in the web of negativity that our ego-driven world mandates as reality? Say one positive thing and all you hear is, get real, get your head out of the clouds and prepare for the worst. Well, I'm here to tell you that negativity is not reality, and that the opposite is true. This is why I have written and published this book. In my new book, I show you how you can walk hand in hand and in alignment with the law of attraction and eternal universal spiritual truths, which will allow you to make all the positive, loving, happy, abundant, and healthy things you desire your reality. Find out how you can become a consistent co-creator of your life with the universe and get out of that negative spiral of lack, attack, and judgment. Get your copy today of my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship by Carl Gruber. Now available as an ebook and paperback on Amazon. Are you searching to know, really know what lies beyond our 3D visible world, where all things that live must eventually deteriorate and pass out of physical existence? Hi, I'm Carl Gruber, your host of this show called World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. And if you're watching or listening to the show now, I'm guessing you're like me, a seeker of knowledge and understanding that there really is something greater, something incredibly powerful in a beautiful, loving, joyful, and light-filled realm of reality that lies beyond our 3D visible world. So, welcome to World Awakenings, the show that seeks all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. Now available to watch on YouTube and on New Reality TV, or listen to it on any and all online audio-only outlets. So with that, let's meet our guest today on episode number 215. We meet Dr. Amy Albright. She is an expert and trailblazer in human potential, bridging business strategy, neuroscience, health, and spirituality. By integrating cognitive, emotional, physical, and spiritual intelligence, she brings a revolutionary approach to human evolution. As a CEO and co-founder of Holon, Dr. Amy creates groundbreaking programs that combine advanced neurofeedback technology with transformative personal and spiritual development practices. That sounds incredible. Through its methodologies and extraordinary tools of technology-assisted brain learning, Holon measures and modifies brain activity via specific protocols that optimize performance for her clients. Now, she also happens to be a Chinese medicine practitioner and coach, and we're going to find out about that. So welcome, Amy. Welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Carl. Glad to be here.
Did I pronounce that right, Holon?
Holon. Close. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Well, I'm really, really curious about this. How the heck did the young Amy Albright grow up to be a neuroscientist? What did you do, and how did you get there?
Well, of the team, I wouldn't declare myself to be the neuroscientist, although I ended up being quite, I guess, a brain expert in my own right. I started out at about 17 years old, I was an atheist and I was studying neurosciences, feeling at 18 at the university to determine the experience of human reality, which I thought we could understand via neurotransmitters. So that's how atheist I was. I hadn't grown up with any particular religion. Well, there was a brief Baptist church thing, and then they told me that all the babies were going to die and go to hell forever because they weren't baptized. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here, right? So I knew organized religion, or at least Baptist churches, weren't for me. And I was really, I think, just having a hard time in life in so many ways and hadn't had a particular faith. And then I basically had a spiritual awakening experience at 18 and started to study neurosciences from a different standpoint. A lot happened at 18 for me. So went from studying it from an atheist to studying and trying to understand essentially still the topic of consciousness, but as a person who understood that there was a God and that there would be no way that science would ever be able to fully explain the totality of the existence of that higher power.
18 years old and you had a spiritual awakening. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was actually lying on an acupuncture table for the very first time. My grandpa, who had been studying transcendental meditation for about 40 years at that point, sitting every day, sent me for acupuncture. And he also started teaching me consciousness, but he wasn't in the room when it happened. I mean, I just went to the best acupuncturist that he knew of at the time. And again, I lied down on that table, an atheist, and I woke and I got back up from it, awake to that there was so much more in this world. When the acupuncturist put the needles in, I felt myself, I don't know that I actually was, but I felt like I was levitating. I felt like I was sinking. I could hear voices. I could trace energy moving through my body through the meridians. When he came back into the room, I told him, exactly what I was feeling. And he's like, oh yeah, that's because I opened up these meridians. And so, it's hard to explain it, maybe yourself or other listeners or have had kind of a profound moment of aha. I mean, it was really profound. And I just knew there was a God. And it changed the shape of everything from there on. And I still have this deep love and passion for science and exploration. And I'm quite, the nerdy academic type. But I also have deeply discovered and uncovered. That's 32 years ago now. So I've deeply discovered and uncovered my spiritual gifts and myself more on that deeper soul level, really, and explored into that so much. And I don't know how to unwind the two. I don't the neurosciences or just the sciences in general and the spirituality or the practical. That's another thing. With a lot of my practice, it's really just grounded in practicality, right? Spirituality grounded in practicality is so powerful.
That's interesting. So you laid down on an acupuncturist table, an atheist, and got up as a spiritual believer.
Yeah,
That's pretty.
totally.
Now, I will say that it's been many years since I've had acupuncture done, but I did, and I had a number of sessions. And it's true. He puts the needles, and you can feel the movement of energy. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it's very powerful. It works.
It is, yeah. It's amazing what happens when the way that we might think about it is restoring back to homeostasis. Like acupuncture doesn't use a sledgehammer. It points the body in the direction that it wants to go in. And when we're in that balance or when we're shifting toward that balance, we can really feel it. At least so many people. Some people will just report feeling relaxed, but many of us can feel a whole bunch more. It's really amazing.
Well, let's dive right into this thing called neuroscience. What exactly is it, and how does brain assisted technology help a person?
Yeah, the neurofeedback therapy is, it's taking the understanding that we are neuroplastic. We can grow, we can heal, we can learn, and continue to create new connections and new neurons throughout the course of our lifetime. Neurofeedback therapy takes sensors basically and understands what's going on in the brain, puts that into a computer in very, very like milliseconds. And then the computer feeds back to the brain, not to the mind, but to the brain, how it's doing. So it's in some ways very simple in that regard. Of course, the complexity of the brain makes the complexity of feeding back the brain to the brain actually a very intricate and involved science. But essentially what it allows for is for the brain to understand how to better function. So I'll give you an example because I know this is still a little abstract. Again, there are wires on the head or something sensing what's going on in the brain. There's no input during neurofeedback therapy. It's just measuring what's already happening. And the feedback loop comes through sights and sounds or just sounds alone. So let's say that somebody wants to be able to drop into deeper states of meditation and also build alpha waves, because alpha waves are a deep foundational wave. If this was a Karate Kid movie, it would be Paint the Fence, right? You must have good alpha to be able to do so many other things, right? So it's that basis. So if we drop somebody into that state of alpha with neurofeedback therapy, they'll find a deeper meditation than probably they've ever found before. And how they're finding it is that their brain is hearing sounds. They have their eyes closed when they're training alpha. So they're just hearing sounds, and those sounds are telling them when they're getting deeper and deeper into meditation. But it's not for the level of the mind or the understanding. It's actually the brain understanding how it's performing. So it's really profound. And it brings people to different states, and not just alpha, like as a general meditative state, but a really profound synchronous alpha. So beyond coherence and out into synchrony, so that the brain is moving like a concert with its alpha, and that the alpha waves in this case are moving from the back of the brain to the front of the brain, which is the way we want them to, and in the right timing and the right balance and all of that. So there's a lot that goes on even for something as simple as just wave training. And wave training is just one example of the many different types of neurofeedback therapy that exist.
I think I'm going to get a T-shirt that says "I have good alpha."
Yeah, there you go.
What's the brainwave? Is it theta that is more on the level of where we become easily hypnotized?
Typically, we think about that as theta. It's kind of a hypnagogic state. I mean, alpha can do that as well, but especially theta. And theta is, also the brainwave that's the most predominant in that early childhood era. So it can bring forward an inner child. It can bring forward subconscious memories that are locked from that time period, and it can also kind of bring us into that suggestible state.
So you now have a company called the Holon Experience. The definition I read of the word Holon is a structural family therapy term that implies the part and the whole inevitably connected. So in other words, a Holon is a hologram, right?
That's right. If you look at HOLO, Holon, or hologram, HOLO, or holacracy, so it's understanding that we're all intrinsically a part of the all that is. Right. And we also, within ourselves, we are a part that is a part of the all, but that is made up of other parts. We have a liver, we have a brain, we have our subconscious memories, we have our personality, we have, all of those different aspects. And so to be able to navigate and really understand and experience, which is why we call it the Holon Experience, experiencing oneness, not just as a thought construct. Or for some, maybe if they sit and meditate long enough, they can start to begin to experience it kind of in those meditative states. But to be able to experience it all of the time, which is eventually what meditation and a lot of these other techniques can help us, or tools and frameworks can help us with. But to be able to have experiences of oneness is really profound. And so we do that utilizing energetics, using the neurosciences, whole host of different tools to get people there.
Well, my next question was, why is your work so important now more than ever to the people of the world? But what we just talked about, most of the world has no clue that they are part of the whole, that everything, the world sees everything as completely separate. You're over there, I'm over here. There is no oneness, and thus much of the of the conflict of the world. So your work, what you're doing, is very important right now.
Yeah, I really agree. Yeah, I mean, I think that most people think of spirituality, they've been taught everything is separate. So it's like there's a pie, and then we have family, and then we have work. Remember this little pie chart that's like so famous inside of personal development, and so spirituality is this little carved out section, and the belief or the action of being inside of the oneness is something that we dedicate to our journaling time or our meditation or a yoga time. But it's not necessarily what we're feeling when somebody cuts us off on the freeway. It's not necessarily what we're feeling when we're watching massive social architectures be gutted, basically, at rapid speed, right? We're not thinking, wow, we're inside of the one. This whole environment and experience of reality is holding me. And there's a divine perfection that is taking place. There's something bigger than me versus I think that a lot of modern society has conditioned us to be quite isolated, living in suburban homes or apartments in little, instead of communal kind of communities. And then the isolation that can happen because of our electronics, because of even the way our society is set up, like every person for themselves. And, it's a very intense, individualized perspective that isn't actually how systems work, right?
Yeah, and you're so involved in modern technology, which is, and what you're doing is beautiful, but yet, I go running on a daily basis. I ran through a beautiful park yesterday on a summer day, and people are walking along with earbuds in or talking on the phone, and there's complete separation. They don't even perceive the beauty around them. And you see this on a moment to moment basis, but that seems to be the modern world we live in. So we need to deal with it in a beautiful way somehow.
That's right. Yeah, they'll go and connect with their friend while they're. I mean, I'm glad that they're outside. That's a win. But if they're not necessarily present, and I think part of what we've lost inside of that is the importance of connected community that we get together with physically, because we are still mammals, and our energy systems and our emotions and our neurons want us to be near other humans and look into other humans' eyes and feel their energy field. There is something dramatically different that happens versus, seeing people on a two-dimensional Zoom screen or listening to their voice on a call. We are not as nurtured, and it's much more difficult to feel that connection. So yeah, I agree. It's an interesting and fascinating time to be alive. And I think, if I've thought about this quite a lot. It's like if I were to invest, if I had $1 billion, or if I had unlimited amount of energetic manifestation and creation power, what's the lever that I would pull that could change everything for everyone for greater good? And it's going to be the word consciousness or the word connection, like
Yeah.
the remembrance, right? Because there's nothing inside of me that's saying, oh, we should set up society exactly this way or that. It's a non-dual perspective that I have. I just know that if we can work together, we'll figure it out. I
Yeah, yeah. And being a longtime student of A Course in Miracles, non-dualism is a key word, and that goes back to oneness. But to continue my line of questioning here, and I'm not sure I know the difference. The term biohacking, I mean, what you do? Is it any different than biohacking, or is it the same thing?
It is a biohacking technically. So, I mean, maybe biohacking could be called like the use of technology to improve the mind or the body in some way, especially the body, I'd say. I don't like the word hacking. It feels a little choppy. It
Right.
feels a little it feels a little aggressive. So technology assisted consciousness training or technology assisted, like I like to use words like that so that I can kind of drive home that same point. Yeah, but it's an interesting space. If we were to use that term, it's a lot dominated by, I would say, very competitive, very, yeah, very isolated and competitive and reductionistic ways of thinking sometimes, rather than understanding the whole system again, because they get kind of dialed in on their data and their metrics. And again, I love data, but we can't lose the forest for the tree, you know.
I don't know. There's something, you're right, something about that term biohacking. It just doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound like a life enhancing thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I'd like to go back. I mean, we kind of touched on spirituality already. I mean, how what you do, how can spirituality work with technological enhanced brain entrainment? Is that because what you do helps give clarity and access to knowing all that is?
Yeah, Essentially, any state that we've ever experienced, there's a correlated neurological state. So if we've reached bliss or if we've reached moments of absolute pain and despair and anything in between, all of those states can be seen and understood electrically inside of the brain with high degrees of specificity. So essentially, if we want for our consciousness to change, if we would like to head towards more joy, dropping off the sandbags of our drama, our trauma, our personality, those kinds of things, and stepping into the truth, then we can tune up the brain. It's sort of like a sports car, really. Not that many people think about it. It's like the one thing that's actually running everything, every organ of our body, every experience that we have of reality. One way we could look at it is that all of our experiences come through our perceptual filter, and that's what shapes our reality, right? Yeah, for sure. But what is it that shapes our perceptual filter? The way our brain is functioning, right? It's a chicken and an egg all at the same time. Because people who want to change their brain can change their brain via desire and positive and framing and understanding, kind of like what it's like to live outside of the matrix or what the truth of reality is, or that they're not a victim or whatever the words are. And that will change the brain. But another way to be able to get an elevated consciousness is to change the brain.
And of course, there are those few individuals throughout history of time that don't need technological assisted, neuroscience enhancing, like Yogananda or Jesus or Buddha or who knows, those people, or Tibetan monks, but most people can't achieve that. So what you're doing is a big help.
It's a huge help. Yeah, it's a huge help. Some people will say, oh, I've had a meditation practice for such a long time. And they'll come to us and they're like, oh, whoa, okay, now I know what it's like to meditate. I feel like an amoeba. I no longer exist as a reality. I'm like, yeah, there you go. Right. It's different than like being able to slow down the number of thoughts, to be able to lose track of the sense of identity of self for a period of time and then return to that sense of self, to the sense of having your body. And it's not the same thing as dissociating, and it's not an out-of-body experience. It's actually an expanded state of reality that's quite grounded into the body.
You mentioned earlier, I do believe you said that you use sound or frequencies too. I just, on my last show, had Tom Kenyon, who does psychoacoustic immersion seminars on my show, and he's amazing. He travels around the world and he's got this 4-octave range, and he uses, crystal bowls and everything, and he goes to sell sold out audiences. Sound and frequency are pretty amazing what they can accomplish.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's all vibration. It's all electrical, we break it down to these same units. And absolutely, I love working with sound as well. I've had some training and some experiences as a clinician working with sound and receiving sound medicine. It's so powerful. Whether it's breath work, for those that psychedelics works for and resonates, if it's sound, if it's neurofeedback therapy, if it's, I don't know, if it's petting your dog under a tree at the park one day, whatever it is that gets us there, as long as it's, loving, sustainable, and we're questing from that genuine, beautiful place in our heart. I say we use as many of those tools as we can, and see what we can let go of, see what we can expand into.
You just kind of touched on psychedelics. I've had many guests on this show who are experts in psychedelics claiming that they enhance and create clarity and even spiritual experiences when used. So can your brain technology do the same thing, and how?
Yeah, it's, I would say that our folks slip into altered states of consciousness pretty regularly and have what they would describe as a psychedelic experience, but they're doing it without anything external to their body, right? They're not taking an endogenous substance. They're actually releasing neurochemicals or working with the electrical of their brain in such a way that they are having that experience without any substance. And I think that that's a very powerful thing in and of itself, because essentially people can sometimes put too much power out into the medicine, right? They put too much power into the entheogen And they're sometimes forgetting, even if they know, they sometimes forget that that exists, that medicine serves as an opening that they are following, and that that's their experience. And and gratitude and blessings to the spirits of these medicines. No discounting of that power either, but that it's a co-creation. I would say that the plant medicines, though, they tend to have a more global effect. It's not highly precise, and that's why it can be a bit of a crapshoot, even one day to another with the same medicine for that same person. But definitely, if somebody's trying something new, it's a little bit of an experiment. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It just that's what it is. And with neurofeedback therapy, it's extremely precise, like down to the milliseconds and down to specific structures or functions. So it's a very different effect in the end, as far as precision. And I think both tools have huge merit and value.
Well, I've never done ayahuasca, but I did grow up in the hippie era, so I may have experimented a little, but that was a
Uh-huh.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Well, I'm going to ask you a rather large question. What exactly does spirituality mean to you?
I would say that it's a knowing that it has a hard time finding words, but I will do my best, right? Which is maybe kind of the way you were framing it. It's a large question. I would say it's understanding that everything has meaning and that everything has sentience, right? So even an inanimate object or even things that seem to be happenstance, all of it has meaning, and that there's a centralized intelligence that actually lives in a decentralized way through everything, right? It's like one big life form. And that to be able to live in touch with that and in exploration of that, and to come into knowing oneself as a timeless soul on an endless journey, rather than my name is whatever and I'm currently in whatever kind of a male or female, or I'm a whatever. It's like really coming into knowing ourselves at that soul level and really seeing through the experience of reality and understanding at more depth. And I think that people can find that through religion in some cases, but I think that there's a spaciousness inside of like the truer sense of spirituality that doesn't live strictly inside of the confines of religion.
So, really, spirituality is a holographic reality, where we do get in touch with the oneness of all that is. And that's kind of like what I said in the introduction of the show, that I want to know. I want to find out beyond what we see in our 3D density.
Well, and what I love about that spirit that you have, Carl, and what it is you're doing here is that no matter how much we know that we don't know. Like we know that we don't know everything, right? And yet we can feel more confident in our sense of knowing. And these are those sort of conundrums or seeming opposites that begin to make more sense the further in we are in an earnest path. But it's what keeps us away from the arrogance, which I don't sense at all from you. And I love, right? It's like, here we are, and we're exploring, and
Yeah.
it's an endless exploration, and we're learning, and we're never going to learn all of the things. And no matter how much we know, there's more to know. And that's actually, to me, that is a miracle all by itself. Like the miracle of life is the profound understanding of all of that, and really being able to explore into that and feel safe inside of it, even though it doesn't have, the pretenses of control or the edges that we would like things to have. It's actually really exciting.
We're like the Lewis and Clark on the edge of the universe and exploring consciousness. Really,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. It's fun.
Well, I one thing that I did read, and I'm interested in this. So, what you do with your brain technology, you can help with manifestation of creating your own reality. How so?
Yeah, I mean, basically, when a lot of people's brains are functioning in poor timing. So I'm going to make a car analogy to be able to answer your question about how the brain tech helps with that. So most people's brains have, we all have a little something going on under the hood. So it's like, you come to the, you come up to the stop sign and there's a little bit of a wobble or a sputter or something like that. The spark plugs, the timing. I'm not even a car person. I'm really reaching here, but maybe the windshield's dirty. We've got some different factors that can go on, right? There can be but for the most part, the car could still drive. And if you don't know any different, then that's just what you think cars are, right? And then if you get into a really, really tuned up car, now you're like, oh, wow. Oh, this has got a whole different feel. It's a very different experience. So I would say that the majority of people have things, maybe everyone, I hate to be absolutist, but that we all can release more of those inhibitors. We can tune up the timing. We can move our body and our brain specifically into a more profound state of awareness or a more profound state of safety. And when we do that, our perceptual awareness becomes more clear so that we can see more things that we would like, right? We can see more possibility where we before maybe didn't see possibility. We saw closed doors or we didn't even notice there was a potential for a door, right? So that's one thing. But another thing is that as we quiet those louder places in the mind, we actually release, let's say, some of the horsepower from those areas that are maybe looping on thoughts or worries. And we begin to have freed up space. So if it was a computer, now we have more RAM, we have more working space, so we can actually accomplish more. But I think that another thing within all of this is that there are understandings and ways of working with the brain to be able to specifically tune it to that right state of quiet and the right shape of forms and the right amount of synchrony, the coherence of the brain, so that your wish goes out like a pebble dropping through water. The ripples just go, right? And they go further and they go bigger and they go with more frequency, more often, meaning because it's a more attuned vessel. So it's huge, and people do end up, maybe also the process is letting go of some of their old stories, their traumas, their kind of negative beliefs about self, as well, kind of on that psychology or that perspective level. But they have less inhibitions in the mind and more of a setup. The waves are beautiful to be able to carry those ripples forward out for manifestation and creation.
And that's true of anything. Anything we say or do or think has a ripple effect, and we don't realize it. What's the old analogy? If a butterfly flaps its wings on the shores of Japan, does it create a tsunami on the shores of California? We'll never know. But also too, as far as manifestation, most of the world thinks that the negative things are reality. Like, oh, I want to have that dream home on the shore in Malibu, but I'll never have that. That's not possible. We just think, be real. They always say when you say something good or hey, it's possible, oh, be real. And they're dwelling in the negative realm.
Yeah, totally. It's negative, it's separatist, it's materialist. Like only the stuff you can see and touch is real. Nothing else is real, right? There's a lot of invisible frameworks that people are working inside of with that. And and so what drives those frameworks though? What drives that cynicism? Maybe it's because they didn't get attention from their father when they were a kid, right? Maybe it's because they didn't get picked for the team. Maybe it's because they proposed and they were declined about getting married, right? Like how did all of those negative events shape or reinforce that negativity? And then how do we go back and wipe that slate clean in a way that's true and real, right? And really there's so much inside of the, I know we've talked a lot about the wires and tech end of it, but so much of the work, really the foundation of all of it, the wires and the tech or anything else that we might use, are vehicles to be able to transform and vehicles to be able to let go of, out of the body, out of the somatics, out of the emotions, out of the energy field, all of that. And we do it in a really rapid way. I would like to make available for you and your audience, especially because I feel like there are so many people that can appreciate meditation and breath work. I have a recording, and I can give the link so that you can put it in the show notes if you'd like.
Yeah.
Even experienced meditators of many decades have really profound experiences working with this, because it's not as much a guided meditation as it is a guide in how to utilize your energy anatomy to alter your state, to be able to come into the oneness, to be able to come into a state of safety in an embodied way. So it's a really powerful breath practice. It's just called the Holon breath practice. And it's very easy. It's not a huff and puff, make yourself tired. Not that I don't love those too, but just that this is the type of tool that this is. And it can be done when your eyes are open. It can be done when your eyes are closed. So it's with you all the time as a powerful tool. It really makes a huge difference for people.
Well, I will be the first to use that, and I will definitely put the link in the show notes. But you know, as far as society considering negative things, quote, reality, much of that comes from societal entrainment.
That's
I mean,
right.
we're taught that from the time we were kids.
That's right. And then anything that's outside of that, any talk of miracles or any talk of spirituality or any talk of anything that's not material, right? Not quote science. It's like
Yeah.
science is scrambling to keep up with what's actually happening. That's the truth of it. But yeah, anything that exists outside of that is not real. I think it's one of the biggest gaslighting, like it's a collective gaslighting, a societal gaslighting to say, oh, well, there's no such thing as a soul, or, oh, there's no such thing as energy. It's like, well, we can measure energy coming off of people's bodies, and acupuncture seems to work. So why not an aura? Is that really so hard to imagine? Because you can measure it with a device, but it's funny
You
what
can
people can believe or not.
you can even see it with Carillion photography.
Yeah, or if I'm a clairvoyant, so I can see it just with eyes open, and then I train people to see them,
Oh, me.
right? The easiest people to train are little kids.
Oh, yeah.
Little kids, little like, before age 7, when the theta waves start to fade a little bit more, is when I see it. Is it's like, oh, okay, what color is that? Oh, and they just say, and you could, you don't have to lead the witness. They'll just tell you exactly what the color is of the aura of the thing, or they'll do a healing, or it's all very simple until the overthinking mind that has been conditioned by maybe our experiences, but like you said, by societal beliefs.
Man, I hope my aura is looking good right now. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
you mentioned a little bit about this mind-body coherence. Why is it important to healing and vitality?
Well, if the mind and the body need to be connected, and a lot of people will try to dissociate from their body, and maybe they do that with technology or moving too fast,
Mm.
or they have an illness and they're like, I'll just ignore it, or I'll cut that part of me out, or I'll medicate it, or whatever. And I'm not saying people should or should not be on medications. That's a case by case basis. But if we align our mind and our body, then it's like we have at least 2/3 of the picture, maybe, because then we have the spiritual and the energetics to kind of round that out. And then anything is possible. That's when we move into being that godlike being, right? But it's if we think about aligning the mind and the body, it's not the same thing as being aligned with the mind and the body. It's not the same thing as the alignment itself.
Well, being a long-time runner myself for many, many years, can't vigorous exercise accomplish the same thing, mind-body coherence?
Vigorous exercise, and it depends. So I'm going to speak broadly. I don't know what your experience is. Vigorous exercise can get people into a state where they hit transcendence,
Mhm.
and it can help to maintain mind, body, and connection. But it depends on how it's done, just like with anything. So if it's intentional and you're breathing yourself into your body and you're feeling your body, that's different than dissociating while listening to really loud music and just trying to, really re-traumatize oneself. And in a way, it's a dissociation. I've worked with a lot of elite athletes, and, they have an incredible will. But the thing is that sometimes they have incredible capacity with that will to dissociate even further from their body in a certain way, even though they're connected to their body as a mechanism, right? It becomes a tool or a machine rather than a holy temple that they're living through, and that's sending and receiving messages and all of that. It's maybe that's even a little extreme, but I definitely see that there's a wide spectrum. But like you said, people can hit those transcendent states. I think that for most people, they can feel intermittent. Like sometimes they're hard to achieve, at least that full runner's high kind of experience. It can cycle depending on how they're doing with nutrition and sleep, or if they're working with low grade depression, or, there can be things that kind of tether that down. And some people can run really hard or long or whatever and never have a runner's high.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
many athletes experience what they call that state of flow. And I know myself, I've run a lot of marathons, and many times at mile 23, 4, 5, I literally feel like I'm a passenger in a vehicle observing things going by.
Yeah.
I'm I don't know how else to explain it. I'm not that body. I'm just riding along for the fun of it.
Yeah. I did. I have not run much in my lifetime. I one time ran a half marathon, and at around um, three-quarters of the way through or something like that, I had that same experience where I'm like, gosh, I hope my feet work because I could easily just land on my face right now because I'm not sure. I had that same kind of or a similar sounds like experience. It was wild. Yeah, but and then the trick of it is being able to integrate that into kind of an everyday state. Can we get there, with ease? Can we get there either maybe with ease while running, or can we get there without having to run? And so it's similar, I guess. Psychedelic therapy, for instance, you can end up in a state and not know how you got there, and not know how to get back there. And with neurofeedback therapy, the benefit is that you're learning the increments. Your brain is actually learning how to balance in that new state of being, like the way you learn to ride a bike. You're not thinking to yourself, this is exactly how I balance a bicycle, but your body learned it. And that's what neurofeedback therapy teaches, is that precise balance in whatever the state is. It could be a meditative state, or it could be a state of focus. It could be, it could be quite a variety of things. As many things as we could name of states that we are in. That's kind of the menu of what's available for neurofeedback.
Well, I'm not sure you want to talk about this, but what are some of your technological tools that you use to help people, and how do they work?
Yeah, the neurofeedback therapy, there's different setups and types and hardware, software. So I think we've kind of covered that. We also use light therapy. So we have a photobiomodulation is technically what it's called, and it hangs over the kind of like over the face area. And the way that the light comes in, it actually stimulates the brain and can move the brain by as much as a couple of standard deviations, which is a huge amount in different directions. So it might be to help sleep or focus or calm or, those kinds of things. It also can be really helpful just with general neuroplasticity because it can help the brain to learn how to move quickly, right? Because we like to be in our ruts neurologically, not just in our life patterns sometimes. So that's a great tool. It's not appropriate for everybody. I am not giving any medical advice because I don't even know you listeners, but that is a great, photobiomodulation is a great tool. My favorite is the neurovisor. And then, we have amazing things here. We have sound chairs. Speaking of sound therapy, we put people into these zero gravity recliners that basically turn the human body into a speaker and put in mostly subperceptible sounds that can be felt as vibration. And those are frequency specific for different ailments and body areas and things like that to heal. We have a cyclic variable altitude chamber, which looks kind of like a little space pod, and it does about it's a hypobaric, so it actually takes you up to altitude and then drops you back down every 3 seconds or so. In the beginning, it starts off at like 3,000 feet, but at the end, you can be up to like 15,000 feet. So the pumping mechanism that is in the body is incredible, and it can be helpful for brain, hormones, longevity, sleep, all kinds of things.
I had a guest on here a few weeks ago who actually sells what he calls med beds. So I don't know if you've heard of those, but that seems to be more of a galactic type of thing.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I don't know about the med beds, I don't think, but I love any of that, you know. I mean, 24 years ago, one of the very first, I'll say biohacking things, but the word didn't even exist back then. I had for a while this device you lay down on a table on a like a treatment table, and there are big arms with these double terminated Vogel crystal wands. So
Mm.
quartz crystals that have been cut with 32 facets or more and have 2 points that are man-made cut, and it would shoot light through one side and out the other, and that would bring people who were completely inexperienced into complete vision quest altered states of consciousness. It was wild. I mean, sometimes it would heal up maladies and physical maladies or emotional maladies that had been stuck or seemed impossible to heal. So there's amazing things that exist. There's so much that's out there in terms of technology.
Oh,
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, I'll send you the link to that show and maybe you can watch and find out.
Yeah.
Sean Callahan, I think that was his name. Um, what I would like to find out about, you are also a Chinese medicine practitioner and coach. How did you end up studying that, and what can Chinese medicine do for a person that Western medicine can't?
Oh, I mean, Chinese medicine is it's brilliant. It's effective at almost every, I mean, like I wouldn't take anybody for emergency medicine, although post-operative or post-emergency, it's perfect for that too. There's so much that it can do. It includes many areas, acupuncture, herbal medicine, but there's also a lot of like specific physical therapy techniques or cupping or different things like that. I mean, I've just seen so many miracles with that alone. Especially, you know, I really love to measure and really track the pulse at a great specificity. So if I didn't talk to a patient and I walk up and I feel their pulses at both of their wrists, I can tell them what symptoms they're experiencing with a high level of accuracy, and then also just know how to heal that with high levels of accuracy because I'm very, very trained with the pulse. So it just depends on this type of education, the amount of education. I have a doctorate in it. Not everybody has a doctorate. Some people have more or less training depending on what state. California, it was about as rigorous to get through that schooling as it would be just about anything. It's a full day exam for the board. I mean, it is a ridiculous course of study for all that's in it, and it's a body of medicine that's bigger than anybody could ever learn in this lifetime. It is tremendous. So I would recommend it for so many things, and part of it's a big part of what shaped me into who I am and or why it attracted me, I guess, would be because it is so holographic, because everything is interconnected, not just in a theory, but like one thing goes to the next thing, goes to the next thing kind of a way.
Well, it seems to me that Western medicine is so pharmacological based artificial elements to go in your body that have side effects. Yet Chinese medicine seems to be, from what I've seen, and I'm certainly not an expert, is basically herb or natural based.
It is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean the roots of it were hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, depending on what part of the medicine we're discussing. And it's about returning homeostasis and and elevating the body toward health, not just masking symptoms or and it also is amazing for predicting and avoiding things because again, if you can hear the whispers in a pulse, or some people can read the muscle of the tongue or utilize other methods. And also just as a clinician, you can put together the puzzle. You can see if they have this constellation of symptoms, they're likely to have those constellations of things that could happen to them. So you can, prevent things from coming that maybe, it's better. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is the old term. So I really believe that to be true. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll sometimes integrate Chinese medicine with your brain tech.
Yeah, definitely. My career was not a normal one. So as soon as I got into practice, I didn't realize that I was a clairvoyant intuitive that could lay on hands and heal. And
Oh,
in my first month of practice, it became abundantly clear that that was what was happening. Because I knew way too much about these strangers that were coming in. I didn't know them. I didn't know their story. They write whatever they write on their little intake form, and then I get a huge download about what's really going on with them. And fortunately, I was brave enough to be able to ask them those questions and to be able to explore out into that. So I became known as much a clinician of the medicine as I was a spiritual guide, and the ability to see somebody and really understand on that. A lot of people know the body keeps the scorebook, or Louise Hay's, the connection of the different areas to the body, right? So I began to be able to piece together and help to solve some puzzles for some folks that had not been able to find solutions anywhere else. So that's what I became known for. And then at the point that I started to run about a 1-year waiting list for a new patient, I decided I needed to specialize. And so I started working with people that could pull more levers for greater good. So people in leadership roles, ended up working with, and a lot of it, again, if you're doing spiritual guidance, you can just call it coaching, because it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I'm getting someone where they want to be via utilizing deep spiritual belief structures and practices, and helping them to understand kind of the nature of themselves and the nature of reality. So I ended up working with executives and executive teams of large companies, multi 10, 100 million, $3 billion companies early on in my career. So that's kind of how the business part, because when you hear my bio, it doesn't really make sense how it all goes together. But when you see the through line is being able to understand systems, being able to understand, I mean, I have a lot of academic learning as well, but being able to apply and download and understand information and solve problems, that's another way of saying it, is like really good problem solving. And I think one of the big, I like to talk about this. So going back to the question of what's the difference between Chinese medicine and kind of like the modern medicine as we know it, I think that modern medicine wants to fit people into boxes. And I think that Chinese medicine and a lot of the other medicines, we have templates and frameworks, but ultimately we understand each person to be unique. And as a clinician, we understand that it's our job to solve, that if we don't like to give people the answer of there's no hope, here's a label. And then, no, we don't have a med for that, or we don't have a specific treatment for that. That's not how we function. And there's a real passion. And of course, some of the MDs have this as well, but there's a lot of passion in being able to solve something for somebody that's been in a place of not having answers, or having really struggled for quite some time, and be able to find that solution. And I'd say that was not only the driver for how I practice Chinese medicine, but also how we approach the neurosciences now, and also how I approach the development of my own skills. My clairvoyance and my medical intuitive capacities, and my ability to channel and be a conduit for energy, were in their infancy when I started as compared to now. And the reason for that is because I wake up every day driven to be able to serve and to be able to solve for problems that seem impossible, and to stay inside of that quest with all of my heart. And so I think that's a huge difference that I think a lot of the more holistic docs might be able to access more
Well,
easily.
of course, we are talking to Dr. Amy Albright. Wow, and I love it, a clairvoyant scientist researcher. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to kind of wind up here. We've got a few minutes left. I would like to ask you another kind of big question here. What is your opinion on the explosion and exponential expansion of AI, artificial intelligence, in our world?
Yeah, I think that it's an amazing thing for us to be able to really hold and understand what is consciousness. And I think that it's an amplification. It makes everything go faster, faster than it was already going. And so we're going to see ourselves more rapidly. And I think that, I don't know if it's actually true that if you boil a frog slowly in water, that they don't feel it and they die. I'm not sure if that's actually true. But to use the analogy of that, I feel like that humanity has been moving along at a pace that they aren't realizing the absolute catastrophic destruction for the planet, our species. Like, people might be so worried about making a whole bunch of money, or about whatever it is that they're worried about, their retirement, what their kids are doing, whatever it is, that they're not noticing and being involved and engaged, whatever that means for them, with the greater plan of what's happening, and really being aware to that in a daily way. It's not easy, right? But I think that AI, to go back to your question, is really amplifying our ability to see it faster. We are able to understand, and it's going to be exponential from here, of course, right? But we're going to understand what we put into an equation is what we get out of an equation even faster, because it's going to make the powerful for good and the powerful for the not so good all grow in their reach. And I don't pretend to understand all of the when AI has that the ability, they're predicting the ability for the AI to have more intelligence than all of humans combined. I would like it to be that we have put some really loving things in there. I would like it to be that we wake up and that, because I think a lot of the really good-hearted folks are afraid of AI. And I would put myself in that category in the beginning. And now I'm thinking, well, how about I use AI to reach millions of people? How about I use AI to help and to serve at a scale that I've never been able to do and that no human could have in the amount of time that one is given.
And I think there is a lot of fear simply from watching science fiction and all that around AI. Watch the movie The Terminator. I asked Chat GPT the other day, so when do you plan to take over the world? And it responded, oh, don't worry about that. It's going to be all right.
Yeah.
But we do have to kind of wind up here. Amy, this has been awesome. I see on your website you offer different programs and experiences. Your website is holonexperience.com. What are some of those, and how can people sign up for them?
Yeah, the best way is to go to the website and go ahead and complete an application form. We actually don't have everything up. We've just launched some beta versions of programs in this last month. But if you see something there you're interested in, or if you're just interested in general, fill out an application and someone will meet with you and help to steward you into the right type of program. And those range from the brain kinds of thing that we were talking about, the signature intensive program, which is a 5-day experience here on site. And it's actually a multi-month program, but there's 5 days on site. People can work with me one-on-one. They can work with a different Holon coach one-on-one. We have kind of a vagus nerve reset program that we can do remotely for folks that aren't ready or aren't financially prepared to do more of the in-depth brain work. But we also have some ability to help people with technology from afar, with technology that is safe to be used at home. And that runs at all different scales as well. So we have some very, very expensive offerings, and we're doing our best to create the less expensive offerings so that we really can be a solution for more and more people. So yeah, if you're interested, please go and apply.
Absolutely. And like I said, I will put that link to holonexperience.com in there. And also, I think you said you had a meditation too.
That's right.
I'll put that in. Dr. Amy Albright, you are amazing what you're doing for the world. I appreciate it, and I know the world does too. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Carl. Thank you for having me on. It's been a lovely conversation.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.